Welcome to the podcast mini-series, How to Plan Your Wedding in 10 Days. I'm Andie, the founder of The Bridal Journey, and along with me, I've got Georgie from After the Rock, and we're going to guide you through planning your wedding in just 10 days. Welcome back. So this episode is all about finding your perfect venue. So whether your dream of a grand ballroom or backyard celebration will help you make it happen today. So today, Georgie, let's talk about venues.
Mm.
Where do we even begin?
I always recommend you start with your guest list. So last episode, we spoke about doing your guest list. Write that out. Actually work out how many people you want at your wedding. I find that a lot of couples will come to me and say, oh, if we find the dream space, we'll make the numbers work. But by saying that, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Like if you could pick from every single venue in the whole entire world, you are going to be in a world of pain and overwhelm. So I really recommend get your numbers. Even if you say, okay, we could have a wedding for 80 people or we could have a wedding for 200 people. If those are your two parameters, at least then you're looking at spaces that fit 80 and fit 200. But if you're trying to find something anywhere from 80 to 200, you're going to be really struggling. Start by thinking about the spaces that you really love the idea of. So are you having is it a winter or summer wedding? Are you wanting it to be outside of a metro area or do you want something quite cosmopolitan? Are you wanting it where you're from or you're wanting it international? Start to think about those things first. And if you've got a clear understanding of that, and that might be a whole exercise in itself, like trying to work that out, or you might have been dreaming about this since you're a little kid, but you want to start there and start with location. And then once you've narrowed down that location, look at everything from restaurants to Googling, honestly, like Vogue weddings and then looking at what, at that area because they might have some little gems. Look at the wedding planners that are in that area. Look at the bridal journey. Look at those
Directory.
spaces.
We've got a directory.
Exactly. Look at your directory and look at those spaces because they've got all these hidden gems that you would have never thought of and also probably have vetted those a little bit more too. So they're a bit more tried and tested.
And I'm finding like a lot of engaged brides-to-be have been doing TikToks on venues I decided not to go with in Italy.
Yes.
So there's actually quite a good amount of information too on
Totally.
TikTok, yeah.
Because we've done, like we did a wedding in Mallorca, for example, like finding and it was, we could go anywhere in Mallorca. So we literally went and did all of the research and looked at all the blogs and looked at all of the, like the weddings that had been over there, the planners from Spain and like so many different options. We got in a car, we drove around the whole island. And like you said, there were 15 venues that we saw and we chose one and there were a top 5 really that we loved. So there are people who have got this knowledge, absolutely.
And do you recommend doing the site visits? As you said, you
Definitely.
went around to 15 venues and just speaking to the people and really
Definitely.
understanding what you're going to get.
I know, look, obviously I've got a trained eye. So when I look at pictures and images and I would do the research first. So let's say you get that short list of venues that you like. You then want to reach out to those venues to make sure, whether that's looking on their website and seeing how many people they can fit in the venue. You want to narrow that down. So you might go, okay, great. These are all the venues I like. Here is like 5 of them have been ruled out because of capacity. I like the look of 5. I'm going to give them a call now. Then you want to call them up and you want to ask them some key questions around capacity, around availability, of course. Like if you have a really set idea on the date that you want to get married, whether it's like summer in 2025 or whatever that looks like, you want to really narrow that down and make sure that there's actual availability with the venue. And if it's international, for example, consider during the week because all of the locals are looking for weekends. But if you're all traveling anyway, it doesn't matter. There is a huge there are a lot of people now who are actually getting married on weekdays. It's quite interesting. It's completely changed. It's not just weekends. So keep that in mind as well. But definitely with your venues, you want to go and do a site inspection and you want to really see it for yourself before you book that in.
And once you're doing your site inspection, what kind of questions should you be asking the venue?
So start by looking around, start by really looking at the space and thinking if you love it or you get a good feeling for it. So start with the feeling first. And if you're like, okay, yeah, I really like the feel of this. Then you want to ask them for some floor plans and layouts and look at photos of how they've laid out the space previously and what that looks like, because it might give you ideas of, you might have in your head, I really want long tables. And they say, well, actually, for 120 people, you can't fit long tables in this space. Think about the flow of the space, like where will people have drinks and canapes? Where are they going to have dinner? Where will they dance? Can it all fit in one space? And if not, what are the implications of that? I don't mind moving spaces. Like, I don't mind if your dinner is in one spot and your dancing is another, but you just want to think about, is that going to be right for you? And, if you've got a Jewish wedding where you dance all night, it's not going to be really probably feasible to do it that way. But if you've got a wedding where the dance component is just at the end, then that would be okay. You want to know if they've got any preferred suppliers, like that they insist that you work with. So if they're like, we only work with this particular florist, or you want to know that up front. You definitely want to also get a contract off them and just to have a look at the fine print. Things like the decibel level, which is the sound and how loud it can be. It might restrict you being able to have a band. You might only be able to have a DJ, and they might not be able to pump the music very loudly after a certain time. You want to know what the finishing time is. You want to know what their packages look like. So once you kind of shortlisted, and then ideally they're putting together a bit of a quote for you based on all the things you've spoken about in that meeting. So you might say to them, it's for 120 people. We want to start at 6 p.m. We want to finish at midnight. We want to do a 2-course meal with the dessert standing. We want to do a cocktail hour. What would that look like for us? And get some cold hard figures around that as well.
And are there any hidden things or red flags?
The decibel level is definitely one. I know where I'm from, Sydney, like sometimes you've just got to really look and see, like, can we actually have a big party there? Can we really like bring a
Especially if that's
band
one of
in?
your,
Priorities.
priorities with a
Absolutely.
party and fun.
Absolutely. And then minimum spends, really important. So a lot of venues will have how much a minimum spend, which is basically you can spend that on food and beverage, but you've got to get to a certain point for you to be able to have that venue. So it might have a $30,000 minimum spend. You need to spend that on food and beverage, and you need to make sure, because you might say, oh, I really like the look of that $100 a head package, but you're not going to get to that minimum spend. So you're going to have to spend that money somewhere, and you want to be spending that on food and beverage or things that you're actually going to use. There could be requests in the contract too for you to put down a dance floor if they've got a nice venue that they want to protect the floors, and that could be at your expense. So just check in on that as well. And access is really important. So how long are they going to give you to set up? So for example, if it's a beautiful restaurant, they might have dinner service until 5 p.m. and you're wanting to come in at 6. You've got to think, what sort of styling am I wanting to do? Do I need to look at buying out the lunch and dinner? I'm obviously talking about, quite elegant, grand styling here, but you might need to consider that. Is this venue available for lunch and dinner? Can I book it out for my date for that time? And what's the minimum spend going to be if I do that? So, yeah, access is really important, and the out as well. They might say that you can go till midnight, but actually you have to have everything out by midnight, which means that you probably have to finish your party at 11 o'clock.
Great. And now tell me, what are your favorite venues?
Don't. I'm really naughty. I actually don't like to do the same venue twice. I've
Right.
I've only twice done the same venue twice, and that was purely because I could see how I could do that. Like, I could do that differently next time. Like, there's one venue actually that I'm doing 3 weddings
Oh,
there this year, which is crazy for
which
me,
one?
but I'm doing the MCA, the foundation hall at the MCA.
Mm-hmm.
So big group from Melbourne have just taken over the catering there. They've done some renovations. It's looking really amazing. And I did a wedding there maybe 10 years ago, the very start of my career, and I've always wanted to have another go at it. So I'm really excited because all the weddings that we're doing there are completely different. Like,
Mm-hmm.
one is a stand-up cocktail style, which I haven't done for a really long time, but we're doing it in a really interesting way. That's really soon, so I'm excited for that one. And then we have another one that's a beautiful, like, theatrical sit-down dinner, and then the other one we've just started talking to the client, so I'm not sure where their heads are at, but I know that I can do that really differently each time. But I love doing unique spaces. I love doing spaces that people can't get into. I think that's what we specialize in, is like, people will be like, what is that venue? I'm like, it's actually not a venue. It's this private home that we reached out to the owners and they let us do it there, or it's like a hidden gem that nobody had really heard of. So I think that's kind of what we specialize in, is those really interesting private places.
And if you're booking something overseas, is there anything to look out for that might be different?
There are heaps of differences.
Yeah.
Overseas is really hard, but great and amazing. Lean into what they do. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. So and they often will do wedding after wedding after wedding after wedding, and you probably find that the response time is quite slow. You kind of have to lean into it a little bit and just organize all the things that you can around that. It's really difficult, but definitely look at access times for them. They often start later, finish later. Go with it. Do what they do. Like just roll with what they do in other countries because you're going there for a reason. You're wanting their vibe for a reason. So just go with the flow on that. Um, and then, you can add your own touches in other ways. But yeah, I definitely think like access, minimum spends, um, and definitely, yeah, they won't have sound problems there. Yeah.
And would you recommend maybe hiring a small planner on the ground
Yeah.
for a wedding
Always.
overseas?
Always.
Yeah.
Particularly for language barrier.
And they know the suppliers on the ground, know the ins and outs. And
Definitely. I do think that with the language barrier, it's really important. I also think that they obviously know the local suppliers and they can lead you in the right direction. Obviously, do your research on who you hire, but I do really recommend getting a planner. I mean, I recommend getting a planner in general. I mean, I had a wedding planner for my own wedding and I'm a wedding planner. So I do think we end up saving our clients a lot of stress and money, but it's got to be the right person.
great.
Mm.
All right. Next week, we've got wedding wardrobe and sorting your
Exciting.
glam for the day.
Amazing.
And don't forget, we've got a little downloadable PDF in our show notes.
Perfect.